The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tony D'Angelo's PM Coast to Coast. Now, here's your host, Tony D'Angelo.
Well, thank you, Mike Du Bois, and thanks everybody here on the Comfortably Zoned Radio family. This is Tony D'Angelo in the edition of Tony D'Angelo's PM Coast to Coast. Speaking of everything, I am so pleased today to be joined by this gentleman. This is a gentleman whom I have known for years, maybe not directly or well, but certainly have known him, and we've had a lot of things in common, coming from the same town in the universe, Stamford, Connecticut. His name is Jerry Neitlich. He is a proponent of the Maccabi Games, where there will be a large proceeding of the games to be held in Orange County, California this year. And I'm reading it, I'm looking at it, I was looking at it earlier. It's absolutely positively fascinating to me. I know it will be to you as well. First of all, Jerry, in the East Coast, good afternoon, and I hope all is well with you.
Yeah, everything's fine. Thanks for having me, Tony. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And we were kidding before we came on. I said to Jerry, I said, you really don't sound any different than when I last spoke to you in the 1960s. So nice to know some things are consistent. But tell us all, Jerry, who you are and how you came into coaching and later the Maccabi Games.
Sure, Tony. Well, yes, you said I grew up in Stamford and basically started playing basketball at the JCC in Stamford when it was over on Prospect Street, the old with the old J, the bandbox as we used to call it.
Oh yeah.
And played in the junior leagues, the intermediate leagues, the high school leagues, and then went on to Stamford High. I was Herm Alswanger's first captain in 1966. We didn't have such a great year, but we had a lot of fun. Learned a lot about life, learned a lot about basketball. Went on to Southern Connecticut, played basketball there for 2 years, and actually ended up helping coach the freshman team for 2 years. So coaching has been in my blood. Returned to Stanford in 1970 and was an assistant at Stanford High through 76. That was the year, some of you may know, we had a great team that year. We had Ernie Cobb, Gary Cobb, they were co-captains. And by the way, Gary runs a radio show in Philly called I think it's called the G-Cobb, the radio talk show.
Yeah,
and Ernie lives in Phoenix now doing coaching basketball. But anyway, when I guess it was about 1988 or so, my wife and I moved out to California and played a little basketball. I still active playing once or twice a week. But they built a new Jewish community center out here, and it was it was about 2004, I guess. And I was walking out of the J one day, and this woman came up to me and said, "Wait a second, Jerry, you used to coach basketball, didn't you?" Because I had been out of it for a number of years, and I said, "Well, yeah." And this woman, by the way, happens to be my wife's roommate at Ohio State. It was just a coincidence. So she knew my background, and she said, "Hey, we need a coach for the U14 Maccabi games this year that are played in San Antonio, Texas." So, of course, I said to her, "Well, you're going to have to ask my wife first," which she did, and Mary was excited. She knew basketball was the love of my life, next to my wife and family. But anyway, so I started coaching I learned a little bit more about Maccabi, which we'll go into, and then I was coaching, I guess, for about 12 years. Had a nice run. We won 7 medals in the 11, 12 years that I coached, which is probably one of the premier teams in the country. It's an international event. But it was good. It got me back into the game, and just love it.
Now, several questions I want to ask you, and we used to do this all the time when Bob Lazari and I did the sports show, Monday Night Sports, up here in northeastern Connecticut. Who were your athletic role models or idols growing up? I'm just curious.
Well, role models growing up. That's a tough one. I didn't think of that. From pro sports and whatever, I don't know if there was anybody. I mean, growing up in the 50s, everyone liked Mickey Mantle. I was a big Boston Celtics fan. Yeah, the Celtics, of course, what they win 9 out of 10 years.
Oh yeah, they're unbelievable.
So of course that was. But I got to say, I probably learned probably the most from my high school coach. It was great working with Herm. He's a good friend, dear friend.
Yes.
And he really taught me a lot about life and also about the game of basketball.
Yeah, and a fine man to boot. That's a privilege. And
yeah, sure.
The games themselves, the Maccabi Games, what is their origin and what is their significance?
Well, the games actually, maybe to go back a little, Tony, when I was in high school, there actually was a national Jewish basketball league where we had a New England league. For example, we played New Haven, we played Hartford, Springfield, Bridgeport, and there was a national championship. In fact, a side story, Sandy Koufax actually played for the Bensonhurst JCH in 1951, won a basketball scholarship to Cincinnati. And one day at baseball practice, his friend said, "Hey, Sandy, could you throw a little batting practice?" Be a Dodger scout there, and the rest is history. But in I believe it was 1983, they decided to expand the JCC America decided to expand that venue, and they created the Maccabi Games in Memphis, Tennessee. They had about 300 kids, I think, at that event. Rolling fast now to probably the mid-90s. It grew to a point where they had 2 or 3 sites, actually at one time almost 5 sites each year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a little bit about what the Maccabi Game is and the significance. It's a Olympic-style event for Jewish kids, so it becomes a cultural and an athletic event. There's anywhere up to 4,000 kids a year, divided into anywhere from 2 to 4 cities, and they compete for a week in basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball, tennis, just about every sport. And then back in 2012, they also added another aspect to it, which was what they called Art Fest. And Art Fest was for the kids who wanted to get into drama, dance, music. So they had an opportunity to also participate in this Jewish cultural event, international Jewish cultural event. And they weren't athletes, but they had their own,
their own vocation.
Area.
Yeah. And it's a fascinating thing. So you said you started coaching this on or about 1983. Now, was your first game, if you will, 1983 in Orange County, California?
No, the first games, maybe if I wasn't clear, the first games were in Memphis, Tennessee in 1983. The first time we actually hosted the games here in Orange County was 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a fantastic game. A gentleman by the name of Dan Brzezinski was our games director, who did an unbelievable job of organizing. We spent 2 years going to other games and seeing what did they do right, what did they do, and I hate to use the term wrong, or I should say what could we have done better. And I think we set the standard for what the games were from there moving forward. So it was 2007. We also hosted in 2013, and then, of course, this year we're going to host in 2018.
Now, I understand there is also if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Maccabi Games?
Maccabi Games. Right?
Maccabi Games. And that is something entirely different than the Maccabi Games?
Yeah, there's a national organization based out of Philadelphia, USA Maccabi. They hold an international set of games, which I believe is the second largest international game next to the Olympics, and it's held in Israel every 4 years. The next set of games will be 2021, and that has events everything from 16, 18 and under, all the way through. I believe they have masters. In basketball, I know they have a 45 and under, or 45 and over. Maybe I get mixed
right.
Group. So that is, again, every 4 years, but it's actually led by the USA Maccabi group rather than JCC Maccabi. two organizations, different but work together.
I understand correctly. Now, I can only imagine what an undertaking this is with all of the different teams, all of the different kids, all of the different activities. Give us an idea, if you will, the amount of teams, the amount of participating, if you will, venues or locations, and what is a week like at Maccabi?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, the planning is enormous. The fundraising, to pay for all of this, it's definitely a seven-figure item. But the communities, and that's what's great about this, the Jewish communities just get together, and whether you're Columbus, Ohio, which has hosted 5 times for a small community like that, to places like Detroit, who hosted 4 times, you spend a lot of time with setting up committees. You have everything from, well, I'll give you an example. You asked me about what's a week like. Maybe that would help you understand, everybody, the listeners to understand. Typically, with the large set of games, which we are this year, we'll have about 2,000, maybe almost 2,500 kids that come in. They come usually on a Sunday. They'll meet at the J or whatever they're. In fact, now, if you're familiar with Stanford, when the games were held in Stanford 2 years ago, the hub, as they call it, was West Hill High School. So they'll drop the kids off at West Hill, and they'll be picked up by what we call host families.
Right.
The biggest challenge they have is finding 800 or 900 families, Jewish families, that will host the kids.
The kids for the week, yes.
Yes, for the week. So it starts on Sunday. Then Sunday night we usually have an opening ceremony, which is held, in fact, I believe when they had it in Stanford, they had it at the Bridgeport. There's an arena at Bridgeport. When we have it out here, we've had it at the Honda Center, where the Ducks play. We've been into San Antonio, where the Spurs play. Those are usually the venues, and it's, again, just like the Olympics. The teams will march in. There's big celebrations, big dancing, or whatever. After the opening ceremonies, the kids will go back to their host families, and Monday the competition starts. And I'll speak just from basketball. We typically have 2 games on Monday, 2 games on Tuesday. The venues could be anything from the local high schools. Like when they were in Stanford, we used West Hill, we used Stanford High. They used several community centers. We're fortunate here in California that we have some facilities, and maybe around the country as well, where there are large warehouses, and they might have like 20 basketball courts. So this year we're going to be using out here a facility called Momentous Sports Center, which I believe I was there last night. In fact, just a side story, this is the week that the college recruiters can go see the players.
Yes.
Called a viewing time. So they had the Adidas, they called Adidas Gauntlet. Must have been 2,000, 3,000 kids from all over the West Coast playing there yesterday. But that's the venue that we're going to use for the Maccabi Games when we're out here. So after the kids compete each day, we usually have some sort of an evening event. It could be something like going to a water park, could be Dave and Buster's, whatever. It's usually some fun event. One night a week, or during that week, they have what's called a host family night, where maybe out here 5 or 6 families might get together and they might go down to the beach and have a beach party. They might take kids to Disneyland, whatever the host family wants to do. And then the next day, they're back into the competition. So, quite frankly, it could be a tiring week, because you get home, you get back to the host family, or the coaches get back to the hotel at 10, 11 o'clock at night. You're up at 6 o'clock the next morning to catch the bus to go to the venues. You play all day.
Oh, sure.
Party at night. But the kids, the bonds that they make, friends that they make, the bonds with the host families. I mean, I've got kids from my 2005 team. They're still in contact with their host families.
Isn't that a really... Now, are these elimination tournaments, for example, are there winners brackets and losers brackets, or does everybody keep playing until the games are over?
That's a good question. Actually, our best example was what we did out here in 2013, because we had a large set of games. We had, in the division I coached, which was the U16s, we had 33 teams. And what they did You play 2 games Monday, 2 games Tuesday, and then they'll rank you. You know, there'll be a bunch of 4-0 teams, a bunch of 3-1 teams, a bunch of 2-2, and you know, you can go right down the line. Then what they'll do is they'll set it up. Out here we did 3 divisions, an A, a B, and a C division. The A division, of course, are the top teams. And they'll have a medal. They'll play a play-in game on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
The winners then will play Thursday, and you'll have these semifinals and the finals. And they give medals to the first, second, and third place teams, just like the Olympics. And the nice part about it, though, is because we set it up into 2 or 3 divisions, if you have a team that maybe is a smaller city, they're not that strong against the big cities.
Sure.
They could hold their own against the smaller ones. They have a chance to win a medal. And you know, when you get home 10 years from now, you're going to look at that medal, and you want a gold medal. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's the upper division or lower division. So it's a feel good. The competition, it's great. I got to tell you, some of the teams I know that I've coached, fortunate to have coached, could have and did actually beat a lot of the high school teams. The competition is really, really strong. We've had a lot of, you know, famous people, if you want to call it. Jordan Farmer was the Maccabi alumni.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a bunch of people that are playing over in Israel professionally now. I've got 4 of my kids that are playing college ball now. So the competition is pretty good.
That's really a great thing. Now, out of all the games that you've ever coached, maybe 1 or 2 stick out in your mind, or as far as a set or a game or a moment?
Well, yeah, I can answer that 2 ways. First, as far as the games go, obviously at Orange County, when we had the games in 2007, 2013, they were great because it was local. But I got it 1 year, 2011, they did something real different. They made one of the host cities was Kfar Blum in northern Israel. So we were able to take a team to Israel for, I believe we were there for 15 days. And we had it was the same exact setup with the competition and everything like that. We were fortunate enough to win a silver medal in Israel. And then after the games were over, we spent a week just touring Israel. So that team probably, I mean, a lot of my teams have bonded, but that one was unbelievable. Those kids are still hanging out together, and it's, you know, almost 10 years now. But as far as one moment, probably the most emotional thing I've got to say is when we had the games here in 2007. At every game in the opening ceremony, they do a special tribute to the Munich 11. And you're familiar with the Munich 11?
I was, believe it or not, I was in Battle Creek, Michigan in 1972 with the Stanford team, with the Canetta team, and we were heading out to a ball game. This is quite a story. And just at the time when we're ready to go to the park and load up the cars, Jim McKay came on and explained what had happened. And we were just standing there, like our jaws just went, ugh, and went, and believe me, I don't even know what the activity was at the ball field that day. I really can't remember. Like, you know, John Hull will say, yeah, this is what happened. But, you know, we came back into the hotel, and he explained what had taken place, and he was shaking, and we were like zombies. I mean, this was really the first sports-related or any kind of related terrorism we had ever seen in our lives. I'm sorry, not to take away from you, my friend.
No, it's many others. I mean, we were, you know, what they've done with the Maccabi Games is, as I said, every opening ceremony, it's up to the host site how they're going to do this. But, you know, being in California, maybe it's because we have Hollywood nearby, we really had a very professional presentation. In fact, Doug Gottlieb, I'm sure you know Doug.
Yes.
He's a sports commentator. He was the MC for the games here. Doug also participated as a member of the Maccabi Games back in the 90s. So we have a lot of alumni. But at the end, they do this presentation, and it was a regular voiceover and someone talking about it, whatever. And the last scene was one of the people who unfortunately was shot and killed was a picture of him holding his daughter. And as the lights kind of went down, then they started going up, and you heard this voice. It wasn't the regular announcer. It was this woman. And she's saying, that was the last time I saw my father. And it was the daughter, who was 3 months old, being held by his father. He went to the Olympics, was shot, killed. She never met her father.
Never met her father.
We had her at the ceremony. There wasn't a dry eye in the entire.
Now it's you know, I mean, it makes me sad. It makes me grateful. It makes me nostalgic. It makes me shake my head. And the shake my head part is in going down the list here of your games that you have been involved with, the Maccabi Games, for many years. I hear things like teamwork and sportsmanship and fellowship and culture and camaraderie. And then when I think of youth sports today, this is probably another time to have you on and we can talk about this. I've never been a parent, but at least in what I've seen, those I know that have coached or parents of kids, I seem to be seeing very little of this. And I mean, I'm kind of asking the obvious here, but is this the problem, or the values have gone out of youth sports and perhaps we should take a lesson from the Maccabi Games and this is what kids sports is supposed to be about as opposed to what it is?
You know, I got to say, I couldn't agree with you more than 300% on that one. You know, again, I just came from an unbelievable event of the top talent in the country. And I don't mean to speak. It's hard to sit as like up in the stands, what they call Sunday morning quarterback.
Yes.
But I think you're right. I think a lot of the values of sports have gone out. There's, winning at all costs. There's promises you're going to get this college scholarship if you play with this team or that team. Maccabi is totally different. As I said, it's a cultural thing. We play as hard as we can, but they have a thing called rachmanis, which in Hebrew probably literally or closely sportsmanship, fairness, whatever words you want to use. That is rachmanis. And basically the rule is, when you're playing the other team, you don't. We've played games that we literally could have beaten the teams by 80 points.
Mm-hmm.
But, we kind of keep it as the 20-point rule. You don't want to get to a point where, you're making the other team look bad because you're passing the ball around 75 times before you shoot because, you have to have respect for the other team. But there is a real sense of sportsmanship, a real sense of camaraderie. The teams that win the medals, they don't go out and gloat. They're congratulated by the teams that they beat. It's a warm feeling for the kids. And, of course, then they go home and they tell their parents about it, and the parents, I think, are happy that their kids had that experience.
It's really a wonderful thing, and it makes me think back to, what kind of these principles we had in youth sports years back that, at least sadly, by my casual observation, don't really seem to be here anymore. Oh, this is a wonderful thing. So, in our closing moments together, Jerry, can you tell us the dates of the game and where some of the events are taking place and your place in the mix, my friend?
Well, this year, I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I apologize. But the games this year, we actually only have one fight this year in the U.S. It's very unusual. That hasn't happened since 1987. So we are going to have a big set of games. It's, I believe, if you have a calendar in front of you, it's, I think, August 5th through 9th, whatever that week is. What they are doing this year that's a little unusual is JCC USA, JCC America, and Maccabi USA are combining to also have a second set of games, like a second city, in Israel. It won't be as big as the games when I was my team there, but it's kind of run by USA Maccabi and not so much JCC. But I spoke with the folks from Philly the other day, and I know, for example, with basketball, we're going to send 3 teams over, from all over the United States. We put together 3 teams, and they'll be going over to Israel. But as far as the Orange County games, the venues, again, we're using that momentous sports center for basketball. Of course, our JCC is wonderful. We have two full basketball courts there. We have a full swimming facility there, Olympic swimming pool. So we use that for the swimming venue. We use the local high schools for tennis. We've got, you can imagine in California here, we have a lot of baseball fields, very good quality baseball fields with the high schools and parks. So the games will be spread out. Usually the venues, and maybe I should mention this, one of the nice things about the games is you not only get to be with your teammates, your basketball team or whatever, but you also get to see all the other kids. So what they do is they have the hubs. The kids go to the hubs after their game, the hub being like in Stanford, Westdale High School, and then they have buses that go out like spokes, and they go to the various venues. So if one of my kids' best friend is playing baseball, after our game, he could get on a bus. He has his security credentials. He gets on the bus, and he just goes by himself on the bus as long as he lets me know where he's going, and he will go to the game. He has to watch his friend. After the game, he comes back to the hub, meets the rest of our team, and then we go to our games. So the idea is you want venues that are nearby, venues that are top-notch, and venues that the parents also can easily get to. So it should be fun. It should be a fun event.
It's a wonderful undertaking, and it's so heartwarming, and it's just such a great thing. Our time is just about running out. I thank you, and of course we'll be keeping in touch, and you do let us know the progress of the games, or if there's any shout-outs or anything we could do for you here.
Sure. No, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and I hope we've given a message to people what exactly Maccabi is and what value it brings to our kids.
And it certainly is a reminder as to what sports values should be. But anyway, we're heading out here with Patrice Rushen. Haven't you heard, an old disco classic? I got to get these names right. But Jerry, I thank you so much, and do take care.
All right, thanks for having me, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Well, we're going to get this right. This is Patrice Rushen doing Haven't You Heard? And I hope you've heard a wonderful show today. Jerry Neitlich, a proponent of the Maccabi Games, and just makes me think about what it's like to have sports in their true meaning. We're going to be back to you soon with a very special guest, Bobby Fiore, my friend, the Connecticut epilepsy advocate, who's going to be talking about all things health advocacy related. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt like you were sitting in a corner and no one was listening, Bobby's suggestions and his thoughts will get you heard and get you the help you need. So for my friends on Comfortably Zoned Radio and across this great land and across this great world, this is Tony D'Angelo saying, have a beautiful day from what happens to be, at least for today, sunny northeastern Connecticut. We'll be back to you soon. Take care, everybody. God bless.